The 1960s ushered in an unforgettable era of country music, as some of the genre's most iconic artists rose to fame. From the unmistakable baritone of Johnny Cash to the sweet, heartfelt melodies of Dolly Parton, this decade spawned a wealth of unforgettable hits that continue to shape the world of country music. Join us as we explore the 20 greatest country songs from the 1960s. 20. Detroit City by Bobby Blair.
I dreamed about my...
Some songs stick around because they capture a feeling so perfectly that people keep coming back to them. Detroit City became famous because it told the story of homesickness in a way that hit hard, especially for people who had left small towns for big cities, chasing dreams that didn't turn out the way they hoped. The song follows a man who moved to Detroit for work, likely in one of the many factories that fueled the city's economy in the 1960s. He's got a job, a paycheck, and a roof over his head. But at night, when everything is quiet, he realizes that none of it feels like home. He lies awake, thinking about the people he left behind, the open fields, the simple life he once knew. He pretends he's doing fine when he writes letters back home, but deep down, he knows he's just a lonely man in a city that will never truly belong to him. Bobby Blair's voice carries all that pain effortlessly. The way he sings "I Want to Go Home" over and over again feels less like lyrics and more like a desperate prayer. The slow, aching melody only adds to the sorrow. This song became a hit because it was real. It spoke to anyone who had ever left home, expecting something better, only to realize that sometimes the place you started is where you were meant to be all along. 19. Walk On By, Leroy Van Dyke.
I love you, but we're strangers.
This song became famous because it wasn't just about losing someone. It was about pretending you're okay even when you're falling apart. The lyrics tell the story of a man who sees his former love, but instead of running to her, he begs her to just keep walking. He doesn't want to see her smile, hear her voice, or even acknowledge she's there. If she stops, if she speaks to him, he knows he won't be able to hold it together. That's what makes this song so powerful. It's not about yelling or crying or trying to win someone back. It's about that quiet kind of heartbreak, the kind where you have to act normal, even when everything inside you is breaking. Leroy Van Dyke's voice is smooth and controlled, almost like he's trying to convince himself that he's fine. But the melody tells the truth. It's slow, aching, and full of the kind of sadness that lingers long after love is gone. Walk On By became a massive hit, staying on the country charts for 37 weeks, a record at the time. It was the kind of song people played when they were trying to move on, even when they knew they never really would. Because sometimes the only thing harder than saying goodbye is pretending you never cared in the first place. 18. Skip a Rope, Henson Cargill.
Play.
When Skip a Rope hit the radio in 1967, it didn't sound like a typical country song. It wasn't about love, heartbreak, or outlaws. It was about real life, the kind most people didn't want to talk about. At first, the song feels innocent. Children are playing jump rope, singing their little rhymes. But then, the lyrics reveal something deeper. These kids aren't just playing, they're repeating the things they hear at home. Cheat on your taxes, don't be a fool, the song warns. What was that they said about the golden rule? It calls out parents who lie, cheat, gossip, and fight, not realizing their children are watching, listening, and learning. The message is clear. Kids aren't just shaped by what we tell them, they're shaped by what we do. It was a bold song for its time. In the 1960s, country music wasn't known for tackling social issues like corruption, racism, and bad parenting. But Henson Cargill didn't hold back. The melody was simple, almost nursery rhyme-like, which made the contrast between the tune and the lyrics even more powerful. The song hit #1 on the country charts and stayed there for 5 weeks. It made people uncomfortable in the best way, because it wasn't just entertainment, it was a warning. Even today, Skip a Rope still feels relevant. The world changes, but one thing stays the same. Kids are always listening. The question is, what are we teaching them? 17. Wolverton Mountain, Claude King. When Wolverton Mountain was released in 1962, it became an instant hit, not just because of its catchy melody, but because it told a story that sounded like an old legend passed down through generations. The song tells the tale of a beautiful girl who lives on Wolverton Mountain. But there's one big problem. Her father, Clifton Clowers, is a dangerous man. He's known for his shotgun, his sharp knives, and his willingness to do whatever it takes to keep men away from his daughter. But the singer, he's not afraid. He's willing to risk everything to climb that mountain. to face Clifton Clowers, and to win the heart of the woman he loves. He knows it's dangerous, but he also knows some things are worth the risk. The song became famous because it had everything: romance, adventure, and just enough danger to make it exciting. Claude King's deep, steady voice made it feel like a real-life Western tale, something you could imagine happening in a small town where the rules were set by men with strong hands and quick tempers. It spent 9 weeks at #1 on the country charts and became one of the biggest songs of the decade. People loved it because it wasn't just a song, it was a story. And even today, when you hear the first few notes, you can picture that mountain, the girl waiting at the top, and the man who dares to climb it. Because some love stories aren't easy, some have to be fought for. 16. The Gambler.
You love me by the look in your eye.
In the late 70s, Kenny Rogers turned The Gambler into one of the most famous country songs ever recorded. But this kind of storytelling, wise old men teaching life lessons through simple metaphors, was already a huge part of country music in the 1960s. During this era, country music was filled with songs about hard-earned wisdom, whether it was a father giving advice to his son or a stranger offering a lesson that stuck for life. These songs resonated with people. They weren't just about love or heartbreak. They were about survival, choices, and understanding when to hold on and when to walk away. That's why The Gambler felt like it belonged to an earlier time. Its lyrics, "You've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em," sound like something an old-timer would say in a smoky bar, passing down knowledge to anyone who would listen. Even though this song became famous in the 70s, its spirit was born in the 60s, when country music focused on storytelling more than anything else. These kinds of songs gave country music its soul. They weren't about flashy production or big voices. They were about words that stuck with you long after the song ended. And even though The Gambler wasn't officially part of the 60s, it carried the same timeless wisdom that made country music of that decade so unforgettable. 15. Act Naturally, Buck Owens.
All I gotta do is act naturally.
In 1963, Buck Owens released Act Naturally, and it became one of the biggest hits of his career. It was a fun, upbeat song, but underneath the lively melody, it told a story a lot of people could relate to. The lyrics are simple. The singer has had his heart broken, and instead of sulking, he jokes that Hollywood should cast him in a movie. Why? Because if they need someone to play a lonely, heartbroken man, he wouldn't even have to act. He's already living the role. This mix of sadness and humor is what made Act Naturally stand out. Instead of singing a slow, weepy ballad, Owens delivered heartbreak with a wink and a smile. The song had that signature Bakersfield sound, twangy guitars, a lively rhythm, and a voice that sounded both carefree and sarcastic. The audience loved it. The song shot to #1 on the country charts and stayed there for 4 weeks. But what really made Act Naturally legendary was when the Beatles covered it in 1965, with Ringo Starr singing lead. Suddenly, a country hit had crossed into rock and roll, introducing Buck Owens' style to an even bigger audience. Decades later, Act Naturally is still one of those songs that makes you smile, even when your heart is breaking. Because sometimes, when life knocks you down, the only thing left to do is put on a brave face and act naturally. 14. Green, Green Grass of Home, Porter Wagoner.
In fortune and fame.
When Green, Green Grass of Home was released in 1965, it felt like a simple song about a man coming home after a long time away. The melody was warm, the lyrics painted a familiar picture, and for the first couple of verses it felt like a happy song. The man steps off the train and sees the people he loves, his parents, his sweetheart, waiting for him. The old oak tree is still standing, the town looks just the same, and the green grass of home is just as he remembered it. It's peaceful, it feels right, but then the truth hits. He isn't really home, he's in prison. Everything he described, just a dream. In reality, he's still lying in his cell, waiting for the morning when the guards will come to take him away. The next time he sees home, it will be in a coffin. That twist was what made this song unforgettable. It took listeners by surprise, turning what seemed like a nostalgic homecoming into a heartbreaking farewell. Porter Wagoner's deep, steady voice made it even more haunting. He sang like a man who had already accepted his fate. Though Tom Jones later made it an even bigger hit, Wagner's version stayed true to country music's roots. Simple, raw, and full of emotion. Because Green Grass of Home isn't just about missing home. It's about knowing you'll never see it again. 13. El Paso, Marty Robbins.
One chance and that was to run.
When Marty Robbins released El Paso in 1960, it wasn't just another country song. It was an entire Western movie packed into a few minutes of music. The moment it started playing, listeners were pulled into a story of love, jealousy, and a fatal mistake that couldn't be undone. The song follows a cowboy who falls in love with a woman named Felina in a Mexican cantina, but love turns into obsession, and when he sees her with another man, rage takes over. Before he knows it, he's drawn his gun and killed a man in cold blood. Realizing what he's done, he jumps on his horse and flees into the desert, knowing he can never go back. But love is a dangerous thing. Even with death waiting for him, he can't stay away from Felina. He rides back into El Paso, hoping for one last moment with her. He never makes it. The moment he returns, the bullets fly and he falls to the ground. As he takes his final breath, Felina cradles him in her arms. The storytelling in El Paso was unlike anything country music had seen before. The Spanish-style guitar, Robbins' smooth voice, and the heartbreaking ending made it unforgettable. It became a #1 hit, won the first ever Grammy for Best Country and Western Song, and remains one of the greatest Western ballads of all time. 12. Hello Walls, Fair and Young. When Hello Walls came out in 1961, people weren't sure whether to laugh or cry. It was a heartbreak song, sure, but it was also one of the strangest ones ever written. The premise is simple. A man is left all alone after his lover walks out on him. But instead of just drowning in his sadness, he starts talking to his walls. He asks them if they've noticed she's gone. He wonders if the ceiling has been feeling just as lonely. The window? Well, it must be sad too, watching the world go by without her in it. It sounds ridiculous at first, but the more you listen, the sadder it gets. Because really, who hasn't talked to an empty room after a heartbreak? Who hasn't looked around and felt like the silence was closing in? Fair and Young's voice carries just the right mix of humor and pain. The song wasn't weepy, it was calm, almost too calm, like a man trying to keep it together when his heart is completely shattered. That's what made it so powerful. It stayed #1 on the country charts for 9 weeks and crossed over into pop music, proving that sometimes the simplest songs hit the hardest. And fun fact, a young Willie Nelson wrote this song long before he became famous. 11. The Last Thing on My Mind, Porter Wagoner and Dolly Parton. Some breakups end in screaming matches, others end in silence. The Last Thing on My Mind is about the second kind. When Porter Wagoner and Dolly Parton recorded this duet in 1967, it was like eavesdropping on two people who had just realized they'd lost something they could never get back. There's no anger, no blame, just regret. The song tells the story of a couple breaking up, though neither of them really meant for it to happen. One careless word, one bad decision, and suddenly they're walking away from something they should have fought for. It wasn't planned. It wasn't what they wanted, but it's too late to fix it. You've got every right to be mad, the man admits. He knows he messed up, but there's nothing he can do now. The woman, she isn't bitter, just tired. You can hear it in their voices. They don't hate each other. They just weren't careful enough with their love. Dolly and Porter's harmonies made this song even more heartbreaking. Their voices blended so well that it felt like a real conversation between two people trying to hold on to something that was already gone. The song wasn't flashy, but that's what made it powerful. It was simple, quiet, and painfully true. 10. Mama Tried, Merle Haggard. Released in 1968, this song wasn't just another hit for Merle Haggard. It was personal. It was his story. He had been in and out of trouble as a teenager, spent time in San Quentin prison, and knew firsthand what it meant to disappoint the people who loved him. And if there was one person he had let down the most, it was his mother. The song follows a man sitting in prison, reflecting on his life. He doesn't make excuses. He owns up to his mistakes. He knows he had choices, and he made the wrong ones. But through it all, his mother never stopped trying to save him. She gave him everything, raised him right, and tried her best. But in the end, it wasn't enough. Mama tried to raise me better, but her pleading I denied, he sings. That line hit hard because it was so real. How many people have ignored good advice and only realized too late that they should have listened? The song became one of Haggard's biggest hits, spending 4 weeks at #1. It wasn't just another prison song. It was a confession, a regret, a tribute to every mother who tried her hardest to keep her son from going down the wrong road. Decades later, Mama Tried still resonates, because at some point everyone wishes they had listened to the person who loved them most. 9. Stand By Your Man.
Welcome to my world.
Some songs become hits, others become controversies. Stand By Your Man was both. Tammy Wynette released it in 1968, and overnight, it became one of the biggest country songs ever recorded. But while millions of people loved it, others weren't so sure. The song tells women to stand by their husbands no matter what, to forgive them even when they're flawed. To some, it was a beautiful song about loyalty. To others, it sounded like a message telling women to put up with anything, even when they deserve better. Tammy never meant for it to be controversial. She once said she wrote it in 15 minutes and never expected it to be anything more than a simple love song. But once it hit the radio, it became a cultural debate. Some women saw it as old-fashioned. Others felt it represented a kind of strength, not weakness, but devotion. Regardless of opinions, the numbers didn't lie. The song shot to #1, crossed over into pop music, and became one of the best-selling country songs of all time. It won a Grammy, was covered by countless artists, and cemented Tammy Wynette as the first lady of country music. Decades later, the debate still lingers. But one thing is certain, no matter how you feel about the message, the power of Tammy's voice in this song is undeniable. 8. Big Bad John, Jimmy Dean.
6'6" stood up.
In 1961, Jimmy Dean released Big Bad John, and right away people knew this was different. It wasn't a song, it was a story. John was a giant of a man, quiet, mysterious, and dangerous if you crossed him. No one knew much about him, except that he had come from somewhere far away and didn't say much. People feared him. But then, one day, disaster struck. A mine collapsed, trapping workers underground. And who was the only one strong enough to hold back the crumbling walls, allowing the others to escape? Big Bad John. He saved everyone, but he didn't make it out. When the dust settled, John was gone. The mine became his grave. The song was completely different from anything else on the radio. It wasn't sung, it was spoken. Jimmy Dean's deep voice made the story feel like an old Western tale passed down through generations. People hung on every word, waiting to hear what would happen next. It became a #1 hit, won a Grammy, and even crossed over into pop charts. Even today, when you hear the first line, "Every morning at the mine, you could see him arrive," you know you're in for a great story. Because some heroes don't wear capes, some just go down in history. 7. Harper Valley PTA, Jeannie C. Riley.
Papa worked, but his check was small.
If country music had a mic drop moment, this was it. In 1968, Jeannie C. Riley released Harper Valley PTA, and it was like nothing anyone had heard before. This wasn't a love song, it wasn't sad. It was a full-on takedown of small-town hypocrisy, and people couldn't get enough of it. The story follows a single mother who gets a letter from the Parent-Teacher Association, shaming her for the way she dresses and the way she lives her life. But instead of apologizing, she storms into their meeting and calls out every single one of them. "You call me immoral?" she says. "Well, let's talk about what you've been up to." She exposes the secrets, the affairs, and the double standards of the very people judging her. And then, she walks out with her head held high. This song was huge. It became a #1 hit on both country and pop charts, making Jeannie C. Riley the first woman to ever do that. It also sparked controversy. Some saw the mother as a hero, others thought she was reckless. But either way, everyone was talking about it. Even now, Harper Valley PTA still feels bold. It's proof that you don't have to sit back and take judgment from people who don't have their own lives together. 6. Make the World Go Away, Eddie Arnold.
A neighbor tipped his hat to me this.
When Make the World Go Away was released in 1965, it wasn't just another love song, it was a plea. A desperate request for life to pause, for regrets to disappear, for a moment of peace in a world that felt too heavy. Eddie Arnold's smooth voice carried a sadness that felt deeply personal. The song wasn't about heartbreak in the traditional sense. It was about the weight of mistakes and the longing to undo them. The lyrics tell the story of someone who has hurt the person they love and is now left with nothing but regret. They don't ask for forgiveness. They don't beg for a second chance. They just want one thing, to make the world stop for a while so they can escape their own thoughts. The melody was simple yet haunting, filled with soft strings and slow guitar strums that made the song feel almost dreamlike. It was a sound that fit perfectly with Arnold's signature style, bridging traditional country with the more polished Nashville sound that was growing in popularity at the time. The song became a massive hit, reaching #1 on the country charts and even crossing over into the pop world. People connected with it because everyone at some point has wanted to step away from life's troubles, even if just for a moment. 5. Crazy, Patsy Cline.
If you got leaving on your...
The song, written by a young Willie Nelson, wasn't originally meant for her, but once she got in the studio, it was clear this was her song. From the first note, her voice wrapped around the melody like it had always belonged to her. The way she stretched out, crazy, soft, aching, full of sadness, it didn't feel like just another heartbreak song. It felt like she was letting us in on a secret. The lyrics are simple. She's still in love with someone who has moved on, and she knows it's foolish. She knows she should walk away, but she can't. And that's what makes the song so powerful. That feeling of knowing better but not being able to stop yourself. The slow, sweeping piano and steel guitar made it sound different from most country songs at the time. It had a polished, almost jazzy feel, which helped it cross over from country to pop, making it one of Kline's biggest hits. It climbed to number 2 on the country charts and became one of the most played songs of all time. 4. Folsom Prison Blues, Johnny Cash.
I fell into a burning ring of fire.
When Johnny Cash performed Folsom Prison Blues live in 1968, he wasn't just singing for prisoners, he was singing to them. The song had originally been released in 1955, but it wasn't until he stepped onto that prison stage, guitar in hand, and sang to an audience of men who knew exactly what the lyrics meant that the song became legendary. When he got to the line, "I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die," the inmates erupted in cheers. Cash had never actually been to prison himself, despite the rumors, but he understood what it meant to feel trapped, by choices, by addiction, by the weight of life. He wasn't singing about prison as an outsider looking in. He was singing as someone who knew what it was like to fight demons and lose. The live recording from at Folsom Prison turned Folsom Prison Blues into an anthem. The rough, unpolished energy, the sound of inmates cheering, the way Cash's voice growled through the verses, it all made the song feel raw and real. It wasn't just about being locked up physically. It was about feeling trapped in your own life. And that's why, even decades later, Folsom Prison Blues still resonates. 3. King of the Road, Roger Miller.
In the summertime when all the trees...
Released in 1965, this song told the story of a drifter, a man with no money, no home, and no worries. He sleeps where he can, hitches free rides, and somehow, despite having nothing, he still feels like a king. The lyrics weren't just clever, they painted a picture. You could see him walking down the road, suitcase in hand, humming to himself, completely content with life. Roger Miller's delivery made the song unforgettable. His voice was smooth, playful, and full of charm. He wasn't feeling sorry for himself, he was enjoying the ride. The snapping fingers, the upbeat rhythm, the jazzy undertones, it all made the song feel like it was smiling at you. And audiences loved it. King of the Road became a #1 country hit, crossed over into the pop charts, and won multiple Grammys. It was different from the heartbreak songs dominating country music at the time. It made being broke sound like the best thing in the world. Even today, King of the Road has a timeless feel. Whether you take it as a song about freedom, resilience, or just a man enjoying the simple things in life, one thing is clear, it's impossible to listen to it without smiling. 2. He Stopped Loving Her Today, George Jones.
All right!
Though recorded in 1980, his 60s work was legendary. By the time He Stopped Loving Her Today was released in 1980, George Jones was already a legend. But this song, this was the one that defined him forever. It tells the story of a man who never got over the love of his life. He kept her letters, held onto her pictures, and waited for her to come back, even though she never did. His friends hoped he would move on, but he never stopped loving her. And then one day, he finally did, because he left this world. That's the gut punch of the song. The only way he could stop loving her was by leaving this world. And in a cruel twist, she showed up for his funeral, the first time she'd come back to see him in years. Jones's performance was heartbreaking. His voice, already worn from years of drinking and pain, made the song feel painfully real. The slow, mournful melody wrapped around every word, making sure you felt the weight of every line. At first, Jones didn't even believe in the song. He thought it was too sad to be a hit. But when it was released, it became his biggest song ever. It revived his career, won Song of the Year at the CMA Awards 2 years in a row. 1. Ring of Fire, Johnny Cash.
Christmas time's coming, Christmas time.
Love songs are usually soft and sweet, but this one burned. June Carter wrote Ring of Fire before she and Johnny Cash were together, watching him from a distance, knowing he was troubled, knowing he was dangerous, and knowing she was falling for him anyway. She compared it to fire, something she couldn't escape from, no matter how much it hurt. When Johnny recorded it in 1963, he made it sound unlike anything else in country music. He added mariachi horns. It was risky, unexpected, and completely unforgettable. The moment those horns kicked in, the song felt hot, like it was alive. It shot to #1 on the country charts, became one of the biggest hits of Cash's career, and forever became the song that defined his love story with June. Because Ring of Fire wasn't just about love, it was about passion, danger, and the kind of connection you can't escape, no matter how hard you try. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.